be a B2B, even you can say a B2C play. And so that's really how it all kind of developed. And over time, just like a lot of startups, you start to evolve because you may see something one way, but as you start to move and as you start to see the market, and the market kind of starts to dictate and tell you like, hey, here's an open door, here's a window, here's a problem that needs to be solved, and then you start to see where you fit more and more. And so that's how we kind of got started, and everybody kind of has their strengths. John York has a analytics background. Richard Berryman though he has a degree in engineering, he's a heck of a salesperson. He has a sales background. John McAdory has a healthcare background, has a degree in healthcare, and that's his background. And then myself, I have a degree in business marketing, but I've dabbled. My strengths are in partnership engagement, customer success, things of that regard. So everybody plays their role and tries to play to their strengths as much as possible.
Definitely. And what were some of the things that surprised you when you started up this startup business and everything? So I'm imagining as a young entrepreneur that there were certain things that surprised you getting involved. I mean, definitely having things like the Black Wall Street event. I believe y'all were one of those that got some of the seed money and everything. But what were some of the things just in terms of business that surprised you?
Well, I think some of the things that surprised me, truth be told, was, people think, people kind of look at, well, you raise money, you do this, and, and people think, oh, man, you got this technology company, you're making a ton of money or whatever. But you read books and you hear the stories about how tough it is, but it's tougher than what people can imagine. Because I've started other businesses, but it's a different ballgame when you start going out and raising money. And then you have people's money involved where they have invested. And what you realize is one thing, because you're fighting for the health of the business, but you're also fighting to make those people that believe in you, to make sure they make their money back plus some. And so I think that what surprised you is the amount of work. What also surprises you is that it's not frowned upon the many times that you will end up pivoting. You go, like I said earlier, you come out the gates one way, but you end up pivoting because the market will dictate that, no, this is where you need to go. And so, but it's not frowned upon. So when you talk to investors, especially the big money investors, VCs, it's not, people kind of look at you like, yeah, that's normal. You're going to pivot, actually, as you should. And so I think those are some of the things that surprise you and surprise me, I should say, is the amount of work and pivoting. How many times you will pivot the business, especially with technology, because it moves so fast.
And I imagine that one of the things is I haven't done any of that kind of work, but I do remember I had a friend that was a filmmaker, and he was trying to raise money to launch his film. It's a film that he still has in mind that he would like to do. And this meeting that we had was probably 15 or 20 years ago. And I remember you're approaching people that you would think had a lot of capital. I think everybody thinks that they're going to go hit their usual sources, family and friends, but also hit quote-unquote professions that supposedly have lots of money. Now, we know that a lot of times that can be mythology because not every lawyer is making as much money as folks want to think that they're making. The same with all the doctors out there and everything, or even all the engineers. But I do remember running into, we would make the pitch, and people would give us like a little bit of inclination that they might have interest, but then when it came time to actually making the donation, that's when you found out who was really in your corner. So I imagine that y'all had to deal with that as well, where people would probably think that it was a wonderful concept, give you the idea that they might be willing to donate or to help, well, not even donate, but to invest and everything. But then when you got to the time of actually needing their investment, you might find out that their resources were not as strong as they thought they were.
Oh yeah, you definitely get that. So, in our case, we're fortunate because we were able to raise, a couple $1 million, and so you're going to run into that. You're going to run into people that say, "Oh yeah, I'm going, definitely want to invest," and then when you kind of get them to the table, it doesn't happen. That's it's kind of nature of the business. People talk about sales, how you got to have thick skin. When you get investors, or even when you're going after investors, you're going to realize how thick your skin really is, and if it's not that thick, you're going to realize that, okay, I need to get some. If anything, this has helped me get some calluses going on, because it's a tough situation. It really is, because people have, for most people, they have an expectation. They want, you got people that invest, and they're looking for a return, and so you're obligated to let them know what's going on and keep them in the loop. And then for the people that said they were going to invest that didn't do it, you get your hopes up, only to when you walk in the room or call them on the carpet, they don't return your phone calls or don't respond anymore like they once were doing. So that's kind of that's the tough part. That's the tough part that you run into. That's the nature of the beast, man.
And do you find that most of the people that you had investing, because like you said, that's not a number to sneeze at in terms of what y'all were able to raise, were most of these the type of folks that just are natural investors, that they invest in a lot of things, like maybe they invest in the stock market and they invest in trade bonds, or were these mostly new type of investors? Because I know that there are different types of investors. They're like the folks that are new to the game and are trying to find a unique product. And, of course, they're like those pitch products where you get investors that way. And then there are folks that are natural-born investors that go into the stock market and find businesses like angel investors and things of that nature. Or was it a combination of all of that?
Well, what you have is, so most of the investors we have are, I guess you can call a good portion of them are sophisticated investors. So they have, kind of like you said, they may have invested in the stock market or other type of investments. But majority of them, investors we also have, majority of them are not technology investors, meaning that technology is not what they tend to do. And so we don't have, so in our case, we have more of your what some people may call your mom and pop investors, whether it's friends, family friends, people that know. We don't have, you can have, maybe you can call them, some of them also angel investors, but we don't have VCs, because VCs are going to be, that's a different animal. They can give you a lot of money, but they're going to want a lot of ownership. And so in our case, we have more family, friends, to that extent. And so, that's for the most part, that's kind of, what we dealt with. And again, it's, again, what you would call sophisticated, because most of our investors have invested in something, some way. Well, again, like you said, whether it's stocks, whether it's bonds, whether it's, whether it's real estate, whether it's other startups, but they have invested in something. So they are definitely aware of the return, of what they should be looking for, and the certain questions that they're going to ask that only people that have invested are going to ask. And most of our investors are very aware of what questions to ask and what standards they're going to hold us to.
Yeah. And you mentioned, I know part of it was, like you said, reaction to the game, and I guess it was maybe a high school game or maybe a college game or something like that. But in terms of shifting directions, are there any certain one of your clients that have surprised you, that you were surprised that they were even interested in having SpokeHub as one of their tools in terms of letting folks know about their product or their success? Because y'all are very much of an interactive kind of company. So if you want to explain kind of how the company works, that would also help some of our listeners so they understand kind of how the company works. Because I know that in some cases y'all have even done demonstrations. Because I remember there was a demonstration at the TABJ meeting where folks were basically writing down, I think, some of their comments about what was going on at that particular meeting.
Yeah. So, so in our case, first off, I think we're kind of have been surprised and have gotten to the point where we have stopped being surprised. And what I mean by that is we have been surprised by some clients or some people or some companies in certain industries or verticals, however you look at it, that are interested in what we have to offer. And when I say we stop being surprised, because what we have realized in the journey we have been on is to stop being surprised that this can work for certain industries, verticals, but be more so focused on certain industries or verticals versus trying to be everything to everybody. And so I think we have gotten to at least to that point, of the game. So to give your listeners an idea of how it works and what we kind of offer, so SpokeHub is an application. It's a platform. And in that platform, companies will get on that platform. They'll have a hub. We call it a hub, or you can also call it a chat room, where there is, if that company, company A has that hub set up, and people are in that hub, in that community, having conversation around that brand. And that brand could be talking about a particular marketing campaign. They could be talking about a new product that they just released, a service that they're providing, whatever the case. But they're looking to get instant feedback, and they're looking to have dialogue with their customers, with their users, with their super fans. And so, because you can even do, we've even talked to sports teams. And so we're able to provide that. But then some companies have gotten to the point where, a lot of companies are at the point where they're like, we don't want to ask our users, our viewers, or our customers, our super fans, to download another app. And so they may need an application, and they want something similar to ours. So one of the things we do is we white label, or you can also call licensing, where we will create the same application, but remove our name, put their name, their brand on it, and service it on the back end. And the other thing we do is for those companies that say, hey, we have an app, but we like what you all have, the data that we can gather, because our big thing is that data is your data. We don't believe in what a lot of companies tend to do, is that you buy the data, get access to it, but you don't own it. We believe that you own the data. So some companies like the data play, and like some of the other things, the augmented reality and the AI and all that stuff we have. So they have an application, they have a platform, and so we will integrate into their platform, whether it's through API, SDK, what have you, and make a seamless, integration to be able to capture that data, to be able to have engagement, because their platform may not have the ability to engage, so they may want to have the engagement. So we will integrate. So we at least offer those three pathways, whether it's using our platform outright, white labeling / licensing, or integration.
Because one of the things that it seems that y'all have done differently, as I'm hearing you, which is I'm very glad that y'all are doing that, is that I know a lot of times the bigger corporations get in trouble for exactly what you just said. They'll get all kinds of data that you may get access to, and then they have access to it, and then they wind up selling it to somebody that you may not even have an interest in. Like sell it to, let's say you're a Democrat or a progressive, they sell it to the conservative side because they've gotten your information and they just want to sell it to whoever the highest bidder is. But it sounds like you and your partners are definitely saying that's not even a cool thing to do, so we're not even going to step into that ballpark.
Correct. And you're speaking from a data standpoint.
Right.
Yeah, and you're correct, because I think what more and more companies have gotten hipped on is that, okay, all this data is out there, and some of these major companies own this data, but you're giving them access to your data, and then they're charging you for that data, but you don't own it. We're charging you just to get access to it, but you don't own it. And what I mean by owning it, you're not able to draw it down in such a way where you can sparse it out. Anytime, whatever that fee is, and wherever that fee takes you, whether it gives you 3 months access, whatever the case may be, you got to go back to the well and pay for that data again. And what we're saying, and our thing is, You own that data. If you pay for these services from us, now your data, and you not